2021 has been a great year for boxing, with names like Conor Benn rising to the occasion and dominating the welterweight division. But with the year now coming to a close and work being busier than ever, fans are having a tough time staying up to date with the latest in boxing headlines. So which news stories should you be paying attention to? And what do they mean? For all of this and more, stay tuned. First of all, let's talk about the dominating performance from Conor Benn. It all started just over a week ago when the World Boxing Organization decided to bring Conor Benn and Chris Algieri together in an undercard fight of the century. And while the majority of bookies found themselves in Algieri's corner, it was Benn who decided to shock everyone by knocking the American veteran out in just 4 rounds. This leaves the 25-year-old British boxer with a record of 20-0, winning a grand total of 13 of these bouts by knockout. In a world where the majority of fights in the welterweight division are decided on points, this is a rather impressive set of statistics that Benn has accrued over the last couple of years. And as the son of former 2-weight world champion NIgel Benn, we have a feeling that the younger Benn will be gunning for the same record sometime in the future. He wouldn't want to disappoint dear old dad after all. But since the welterweight division is considered to be one of the most competitive divisions in the sport at the moment, it goes without saying that things are going to get a lot tougher before they get easier. Walking away with that championship belt is not exactly a sure thing when it comes to Benn, but if he shows the composure and clinical brutality that he did against Algieri, there's no doubt that the boxing icon stands a chance at bringing down the athlete standing between him and the championship. But as it turns out, he's already made his father proud. At least that's what we assume based on the reaction of NIgel Benn to his son's miraculous win over Algieri. The proud dad stared on from the crowd as Benn got Algieri on the ropes, showing off an impressive amount of footwork that made him next to impossible to hit. He then slammed Algieri with a couple of jabs, loosening him up for that 4th and final round. And it's a good thing too, as by the look of things, Algieri wasn't taking the bout too seriously. Just before the start of the fight, he disrespectfully stuck his tongue out at his opponent, which no doubt lit a fire in Benn's heart and had him punching with the aggression of a charging bull. When asked about his son's performance, NIgel Benn spoke up about just how great the fight actually was, and how proud he was that his son decided to keep his composure despite seeing Algieri stumble in the 2nd round. But it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for NIgel Benn. According to him, his young son still needs some training before he is ready to take on the other prodigies of the welterweight division. Although taking down Algieri is a feat in its own right, with the boxer having previously lost just 3 bouts out of a total of 28, this was very much the end of his boxing career. In other words, Conor Benn shouldn't be too cocky due to this impressive defeat. We've also heard some crazy news from the camps of Amir Khan and Kell Brook, and this has everything to do with the fine that these fighters stand to face if they end up weighing above the weight limit that they both agreed to this year. For those of you who don't know, Amir Khan and Kell Brook will be facing off against one another in one of the most anticipated bouts of next year. According to reports, this face-off will take place on the 19th of February and stands to be the biggest British fight of the year outside of the heavyweight division. The agreed-upon weight limit in question has been set at exactly 149 pounds, which is just 2 pounds over the welterweight limit, and will solidly classify the fighters as such. That being said, as is the case when any limit is agreed upon, it sounds like both fighters are taking their weight very seriously at the moment. And that makes sense considering how they both face a fine of 6 figures for every pound they reflect about that chosen weight limit. In other words, this is one time where a fighter can end up going bankrupt for having an extra cheeseburger before a fight. Ben Shalom, the fight promoter who holds the account of this bout, has responded to an outrage surrounding the intensive fine by saying that both athletes are incredibly motivated at the moment, so there shouldn't be problems with the weight. Suffice to say, both Khan and Brook will be working out over the festive season. They aren't the only ones though, with Otto Wallin asking for another fight. According to reports, this request has nothing to do with the financial needs of the Swedish heavyweight boxer. In fact, the true story behind the task is pretty motivational. You see, ever since Wallin went head-to-head with Tyson Fury and lost, the man has been doing everything he can to become the next interim WBC champion. At least, that is what promoter Dmitry Salita has been saying in the last few months. He appears to be onto something though, as since that infamous bout in 2019, Wallin has added a grand total of 2 heavyweight victories to his resume, and if he does end up securing himself the position of interim champion, the next fighter on his list will no doubt be Tyson Fury once more. According to those closest to Wallin, he started boxing because he wanted to be the best. In order to be the best, you have to obviously take out the best. Now, Wallin can't do that until he's given the chance to redeem himself against the #1 heavyweight fighter in the world right now, who just so happens to be Fury. As of right now, there are pretty complicated talks taking place between Fury and Dillian Whyte, in which Wallin is no doubt watching with some interest. And if things fall through, Wallin is going to want to have the resume to jump in and request the open shot, hopefully putting himself in a position to win the coveted championship title. Jake Paul's also in the news again, but this time because of Jorge Masvidal. To really understand why the youngest Paul brother is making headlines once more, we have to remember that he is no longer just a YouTuber. Despite what you may think of the kid, he has done an incredible job in reviving the sport of boxing over the last few years and has actually put in a few dominant performances in the ring. After fans of Tyron Woodley came to accuse Jake of tampering with official rulings, which resulted in their last fight ending in a split decision, the two fighters decided to settle things once and for all on last Saturday night. And unfortunately for Woodley, this saw the former UFC champion fall to the mat in the 6th round overall, causing Paul to win via knockout. But if there was one person that was less than impressed by his performance, it was another UFC fighter by the name of Jorge Masvidal. You see, after Jake's win, he ended up calling out a number of names, which included Masvidal. But the Florida native hit back at the Paul brother by saying, "I know what you pay," and finishing things off by stating without much irony that Jake simply couldn't afford him. He even went on to discuss how Jake Paul talks a big game, throwing numbers like 50 million around. The UFC fighter then pointed out that if this was truly the case, Floyd Mayweather would have taken a fight against him, not his brother. Ouch. Last but not least, we have to tell you all about the terrible debut of Tim Simona. For those of you who don't know, Tim Simona was booted out of the Samoan International Rugby League after it was found that he was betting on matches in which he was playing. This is obviously something that World Rugby looks down on and decided to ban him from the league from 2017 onwards. So when the announcement was made that Simona was going to be making a boxing debut this year, you could imagine how many Samoan fans wanted to tune in for the opportunity to see him getting hit in the face. And wouldn't you know it, that's exactly what happened. After facing off against cruiserweight Aaron Coco a few hours ago, the doctor on staff actually had to call the bout off after it became obvious that Simona couldn't even defend himself from a simple punch. After being beaten to an absolute pulp, it goes without saying that Simona's future is not in boxing. And there you have it, everything you need to know about what's been happening in the world of boxing. Will you be tuning into the Amir Khan fight in February? And what do you think of the prospects of Volin? Feel free to let us know in the comments section down below.